So here we are, this is the preliminary tutor book, lesson 2. Now in the lesson 2 there are 5 teaching aims. So the first teaching aim is to talk about Quaver Notes. The next teaching aim is to talk about the upbeat. The third teaching aim is talking about further coverage of playing hands together. Then we've got legato, and then finally is to play more than one note in each hand. Now this is a little bit of revision because again you did this in your first steps tutor book when you played the piece playing tight notes. So first page starts by looking at Quaver Notes, and you can see that you've got 2 kinds of Quaver Notes shown on this page. The first one shows a single quaver and how that is written, and that's worth half a count. Then you've got 2 quavers that are grouped together, so that equals a crotchet, but it shows how they're beaten together at the top with a line, and you have the opportunity to practice writing both of those in your tutor book. And then your first practice task talks about the quavers and gives you the opportunity to play the quavers. So all the way through you play quavers in this piece, and you can see this time the quavers are beamed into 4s, which you can also do. So this piece is called the Coffee Song, and the reason I've named this piece the Coffee Song is because when you play quavers, in my head I think of the word coffee. So I say coffee, 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 like that. Okay. The Coffee Song. Moving over the page, we're now introducing you to the upbeat. Now sometimes a song doesn't begin on the first beat of the bar, so any notes that come before the first full bar are called upbeats. And when we play upbeats, the last bar also adds up, so you'll notice that this bar at the end of upbeat rock and roll has only got 3 counts in, because it balances with the first bar, which has only got 1 count in, the upbeat bar, to make the 4/4 time signature. So upbeat rock and roll, here we come. And then we move on to a different version of upbeat rock and roll, and this is called upbeat rock and roll together. So the difference between the first upbeat rock and roll and the upbeat rock and roll together is that the rests have been substituted with notes. So you're actually trying to play a little more of playing both hands together at the same time. most astute of you will notice that there's a very strange looking sign in this. Now this sign is called the crescendo sign, which means gradually getting louder. And we will talk a little bit more about that later. But for now, you will notice that the piece begins with an MF and it finishes on an F. And with the crescendo, you're gradually getting louder to reach the forte. Now the next piece in the book introduces you to the legato sign or the slur sign. So legato, again, we had a little bit of this in the first steps tutor book. Now we're going to look at it in a bit more depth. So the legato means to play smooth, and so you just try and join the notes up as best you can. And you can see the piece question and answer has been very cleverly written, because it's got a legato sign, but the very last note here has got a staccato on. So on the very last note you have to bring your hand up. Okay? So this piece is called Questions and Answers. So again, if you look at your dynamics on this one, mezzo forte, moderately loud to begin with, and then you go very quiet or quiet at bar 7, and then you do a crescendo up to the forte. So a lot to deal with there, lots of detail to think about. Always think about the detail in your pieces, even in these early stages, because it's the detail that gives you the distinction. Remember, distinction means detail. So we're moving on now to a piece called Counting Rests. And as the name suggests, you've got to count the rests very carefully. You've got minim rests, you've got crotchet rests in this piece. So count very, very carefully in between. Some people might find it easier to actually put the counts on to start with to help them through, which is fine. And then what I suggest you do, always write them in pencil, and then you can actually, erase them a bit later on when you feel a bit more confident. You'll notice this piece has also got staccatos in too, so everything has to be played very short. But the main thing that this piece is showing you is how to play more than one note in each hand. So when you do that, you're playing what's called intervals. And the best way to play this, I think, as with all the pieces in this book, if you're finding them difficult, is to break them down and always start playing separate hands first and then putting together as you get a little bit more braver. And that completes lesson 2. Happy playing.